Okay, kia ora koutou. It is 2:30. Let's get this thing rolling. Welcome along, everybody. It's good to see you. If you have been to our Rate Online Q&A before, welcome back. How are you? That's good. Okay, thanks. If you haven't been here before, welcome along. We're about to change your writing life. We're about to make your writing life even better. You might think that you're a great writer, but you're going to be an even greater writer after this half an hour. And look, before me, we've got three fantastic consultants with us who are going to be sharing their wisdom, knowledge, thoughts, and most importantly, answering your questions. So if you've come along with a burning question that you want to know about inclusive writing, put it in the Q&A function down the bottom there. You can start immediately. Now, we're just going to start off by introducing our consultants, and then I'm going to talk about a little bit more about the webinar. So first of all, Deepti, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Kia ora, everyone. I'm Deepti, and I work at Write as a plain language consultant. I work with organizations to make their content clear and reader-friendly. And part of my work is to make sure that the content is inclusive, which is why I'm really excited to be here and share some ideas and also learn and gain new insights from you all.
Great. Kia ora, Deepti. Thanks for coming along. All right, Eve, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Kia ora. Obviously, I'm Eve, but I'm the marketing coordinator at Write. So everything I do is targeted towards making sure that readers feel welcomed, included. And I also have a background in it at uni, talking about inclusivity and just everything to do with being welcoming and fueling a safe space and making things look pretty too.
It's a big piece of work. Thank you, Eve. And Daniel, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Kia ora, no kirihi o Porana. Tipuna ko spesis o kirihi te moutere. My name is Daniel Androutsos. I'm plain language consultant at Write. I run our workshops, helping people find better ways to reach their readers and get the outcomes that they're looking for. So yeah, I've also got a background in teaching English overseas. So a few different perspectives on working with people from other cultures and those kind of issues. So yeah, I'm looking forward to today. Should be fun.
Okay, what a team. And like I mentioned at the start, this is a Write Online Q&A. What is Write Online? Write Online is our micro-learning library of there is so much incredible content on there. And at the moment, as part of this inclusive writing webinar, we're going to be giving you a special bundle deal. Check it out. $49 for a whole year of access to videos that you can watch whenever you like to improve your accessibility when you're writing, your inclusive thinking, and your language, all sorts of things. Go to writeonline.co.nz and you can check it out there. Strongly recommend it. If you have any questions during this session, this is your session. We're live. So put them in the Q&A function down the bottom of your Zoom bar there, and we will get through as many questions as we possibly can. Now, we always start these webinars the same way with our consultants' top 3 tips. So we're going to go to those now. So if you are watching, get your pen and paper out and get ready to write these down. Get your Word document open, ready to type, ready to capture some gold to begin with, and then we'll get into some questions. So first of all, Deepti, if you were going to some recommendations to folks who are watching who want to write more inclusively, what would you say?
Right. So my first tip would be to pause and find out more about your reader. Ask who's going to read this and what's their background and what they might care about. I think when you know more about your readers, it's easier to write in a way that feels more respectful and welcoming. So I'd suggest taking the time to create a simple reader profile if you like. It's well worth the time and effort. And my second tip then would be to be flexible and open to change. Now, with inclusive language, while there are some basic fundamentals that you have to consider, there's also no one size that fits all. What may be okay in one culture and context might not be okay in another. So it differs. And also, like, our worldviews and language, they're constantly evolving. What was okay 10 years ago is now considered not so okay to do. So we need to be ready to consider different perspectives and adapt to the changes around us. I think that's where being flexible and open to new ideas would really help. And my third and final tip is to be aware about our own biases. Now, along the way, like, we carry little habits and beliefs that we've picked up, and it's often without realizing, but just completely normal and human to do. So it's okay. But the good news is, like, we can unlearn these by simply just being aware and being intentional with our writing. And each time we do it, like every piece of writing, it's only going to get better. We're only going to become more inclusive if we put that right at the front. So I'm going to finish with the cliche, which is it's all about progress and not about perfection.
Right on. It's okay. Gold. Fantastic. Okay, Eve, same question. If you were going to give folks who are watching some tips, they want to write more inclusively?
Oh, those are such good ones, Deepti. I guess a lot of mine piggyback off that as well. My first one would just be similar to the reader one. Just be thoughtful in the language that you're using when you're talking to people, whether it's via email internally or to clients or out in the world, and try to connect with your reader. Actually think about who you're writing about, and really, even if you write it up quickly, say it's an email, you just need to get it out, actually then have a minute of pause, like you said, Deepti, and go, actually, what's a way of maybe, I don't know, adding a bit of sparkle to this? I always call it sparkle, just like something that will make it a bit warmer, a bit more human, and really connects you and that person, even if it's just, how is your day going? I hope you're having a good one. And then you get into the meat of it, or just something you know about that person, especially if it's internal comms. Offer, like, for example, Deepti, I know you love cats. I'll always mention it's first email I send through, but obviously that's more of an internal communications, but instantly the person feels valued, that you've listened to something about them and that you're remembering it. And that's what people want a lot of the time. My second would be, don't be afraid to ask or clarify or specify. Just like you said, Deepti, with so many things are changing, especially with inclusive language. Even now, things could change in a year. And every individual person from whatever community you might be talking to is different. And they would rather you ask. They have their own agency and power and everything. For example, pronouns. Just ask someone what their preferred pronouns are. And it's as simple as that. And they're probably more than likely to say and just tell you. Then you're like, cool, I know, right? And that can be the same with any of these things. And then my third one would be just like small tweaks and little changes in whatever you're writing, whether it's a document or a social media post. Really change the way something might be interpreted. For example, if you usually use "Hey guys," which I've been prone to do myself, instead say "Kia ora koutou" or "Kia ora everyone." My favorite is "Kia ora lovely people." It's what I use in the internal comms at Right, just because obviously get on well with everyone here and try to make them all feel included. But it's just those simple things that can change the way your comms, and they can go a long way.
Lovely. Thank you, Eve. Let's keep the ball rolling. Lovely. Okay, Daniel, you can say 3 tips if you like, or you can just fill in the gaps comments.
I'll say 3 in 1. So one is use plain language, which we often refer to as reader-focused language. So 3 examples of that would be making sure you're trying to just stick to one idea per sentence, so you're not overwhelming. Like I'm thinking here at this point of your neurodiverse readers. I think 1 in 5 New Zealanders apparently have some form of neurodiversity, be ADHD or dyslexia or something else. So if we want to make sure we're including them, then things like shorter sentences will be much easier for them to take in. Or sometimes it's a matter of your readers possibly being overwhelmed by too much content. Sometimes it's a matter of your readers needing to be able to absorb the content very quickly, and shorter sentences will help in both of those. Other things is making sure your layout is friendly, as we say, so you're not forcing these people to be confronted with what looks like a wall of words on a page. That's going to cause a lot of challenges for everyone. These are kind of tips that are helpful for whoever your readers are, but particularly for those dealing with those kind of issues, and making it really easy for them to pick up your key points. So sometimes it's what you put into bullet points, if making those points in your heading so that those readers can really orient themselves to your messages really quickly, because their challenges will mean that's going to be incredibly helpful.
Hopefully. Okay. Well, that's the end of our top 3 tips. You them all down, and now that's going to transform your life. Now we're going to get into some questions. So if you have a question, I've got a couple, and we'll get into those in a sec. If there's something that Deepti or Eve or Daniel has said just now that you want some more information on, made you think of something that you want to ask, now is your time. These people are at your service. Okay, so the first question we have is for you, Deepti. So anyone else can comment as well. Deepti, you mentioned basic fundamentals. What do you mean? Where do we start?
basic fundamentals would be things like we could start with gender. Like we could say chair instead of chairman, just to keep the focus on the role and not the person's gender. I have recently actually written a blog on inclusive language, which said, in which I've given an example of Asian worker. Like, is it really necessary to identify the person's ethnicity, or can we just go worker? A very common one that's also used is female actor. Like, can we just say actor? Do we have to define someone's role by their gender? So these are the basics that we need to consider. Can we take out gender? Can we ethnicity? Things like age bias. Do we have to say older people? Is that really necessary for that context? In some instances, it is important to qualify that, but just take a step back and have a think if it's really necessary for that piece of information.
Daniel or Eve, any thoughts on that question there? What are some things that people should keep in mind as like a fundamental? Is it an outlook? Is it a thing that you should be doing? What do you think, Daniel? And then we'll go to you.
Yeah, I was just reflecting on what Deepti was saying, and that some of our listeners or watchers out there might be thinking of times where some of those phrases may be more appropriate because of the context of who they're writing to. And that's really the key. It's always considering who are you writing to and how are they going to relate to this content, and trying to put yourself into their shoes. And if you're keeping an inclusive cap on, then it's like, what here could possibly trigger me if I was in that position? What could I possibly take in a negative way? And if they're passing that test, if you're like, oh, I think, in this context, that's right, then that's it. That's good. But checking in with a colleague is also really helpful, because anyone who is not you is going to do a better job of stepping into the reader's shoes than you, just because you are the writer, and we can return that favor as well. So I think the context is key. As long as we're aiming for what's going to be best for our readers and what's going to make them feel welcome, but also what's going to provide them with the precision that they need, I think those things will get you on the right path.
Anything to add on that one, Eve?
Yeah, I mean, everything you guys have said, I would say as well, but it's definitely people first. If you're ever unsure with, say, you mentioned pronouns and things, Deepti, but you can also just use the person's name, especially if you're referencing a particular person. You can say, Deepti said this, or rather than necessarily naming their job description, if you don't have to name the person, and people love to see their names, it acknowledges who they are more than even their pronouns or anything like that does. So if you're ever unsure, like you said as well, so just think about whether it's necessary to mention those things or whether you can just refer to things as they or them. Sometimes if you're really unsure, that's a completely all good pronoun to use. And I think it's the main thing I'd say on that.
I do have something to add. We also have an inclusive language checklist on our website. It's a free resource. So please feel free to download it and use it when you write. I think sometimes we just get, as writers, we could get quite caught up in our writing. So having that handy checklist as you work could be quite useful.
What are the fundamentals? And it was one of your early tips, Deepti, was about bias. We've got a few questions here about how do you keep aware of that? So is there a way that people can be aware of what some of their biases might be?
Yeah, I think it's really common. I think the key here is to be aware so that we can gently shift how we speak and write. Like I have the tendency to say guys to address a mixed group. Now I try to use everyone or team instead, but I still catch myself saying guys sometimes. So what I've done is I've stuck a post-it right on my monitor to remind me to say everyone or team. It's just a gentle nudge to keep me on track. So I think techniques like these help. And like I said, the inclusive language checklist is quite handy to have. To really try and find techniques that work best for you. Like I'm a very visual person, so I like having post-its all around me. Don't do this, don't do that. That keeps me on track.
I think I might need to stick some of those post-its to my boy. Eve, any thoughts on this one about bias? Is there a process, or would you recommend anything about how to be aware? And then what do you do with those biases?
Yeah, I think it's all about assumption, right? Like you might not even realize what you're assuming about something, and you can be completely meaning well and accidentally say like guys or things. And the checklist and like post-it notes are a really good reminder, but also just having someone else take a look at it. Like Danny mentioned earlier, it's a good way of being like, hey, does this sound all right? Or even if you know someone's from a different demographic, a different age bracket, maybe you could have them take a look at it and they might be like, hey, maybe just word it this way. Maybe that's not how I would necessarily go about it. Peer reviewing, even just in an email and things, can be really helpful. Just pinpointing those moments where maybe you've made an assumption that might not cater to everyone. And I don't think you should be afraid, and don't be afraid if someone says, oh, by the way, maybe you mentioned this and it might not go well. Like, people might not always take that well. So, hey, let's just change it to this wording instead. And like, it's that small tweaks thing. Sometimes it's just changing guys to everyone or anything like that.
Anything to add on that one, Daniel?
Yeah, so we think about heuristics or the mental shortcuts that we use all the time that help us make sense of things really quickly. There's a really nice infographic, and maybe we can provide a link to it later, that you can find on the net. With, I think there are about 50 or so heuristics or mental shortcuts that have been identified, and they're grouped into other categories. And some of them just help us understand quickly. Some of them do lead to bias. And so one thing you can do is work through some of those and just consider, in what situations have you possibly been relying on that mental shortcut or that bias? And there could be something you could do as a team, because sometimes we need some help with that, and help to identify where those biases are kicking in. And sometimes in areas you haven't really considered. And where have they been useful? For example, you helped me realize to not eat that fruit because it didn't look very good and turned out to be rotten. And in what cases has it been problematic? So that's one.
Oh, sorry. Similar. There is actually a it's called like the wheel of power or the wheel of privilege. It's more of an intersectional opinion on it, but it's these 3 different areas where there's marginalized communities on the edge, there's a middle community, and then there's the privileged one. I know some people don't always like viewing them that way, but it can be a good way to guide where you are on it, where your biases might be within it. And also it gives a really good perspective of the entire population of people that you might not realize you're not catering for, or you might have biases about, because everyone is different. Everyone will fall in a different area of that spectrum. And it's a really interesting way to look at it. Sometimes it's a good thing to refer back to, like, oh, okay, where am I sitting on that? And where might I actually be having some bias about these things because I don't understand certain other communities or other areas of this?
I was thinking that if privilege is one of the words that's treating your audience, then use marginalized and less marginalized.
Okay, let's move on. I feel like we've given folks some good. I've got this post-it note. Don't say guys. Don't say guys. We've talked about some tips, so some approaches that you can have if you're watching and you want to write more inclusively. Those are some things that will help you in that mission. We've got a good question here. I'll read the question and then we'll talk about it. So the question is, how can I convince people that inclusive language and content is super important? Any top tips? In my space, it's treated as a nice to have rather than a must have. So this is definitely considered by a lot of people as it's a bunch of fluffy stuff. Just write to the most people that you can. And there's a certain kind of efficiency in that. But I think a lot of people overlook the risks in defaulting to that kind of thinking. So could each of you just give some thinking around what are the business benefits? Like, how is it good for our clients, the people that we're dealing with? We're going to go in reverse order. Daniel, you get to kick this one off.
Again, you could go through the process of just considering all of the groups of people that are maybe outside of that kind of core group you've decided you've tried to target.
Whatever normal is.
Yes. Pulling up the stats, like I mentioned before, 1 out of 5 neurodivergent, and realizing that there could be a large proportion of the people that you actually do want to reach, or that you want to impact with your service or your product or the value that you're offering, and that you could be doing your own organization a disservice by not including their needs in the way that you're communicating. You like literally limiting the people that you can reach with what you're trying to achieve. So yeah, I think you could work through that systematically a little bit too.
Eve, thoughts on that one? Give us the why. If anyone's hesitant out there, what are some big reasons, or just even a reason, why people should try to write in a more inclusive style?
I think the easiest, it's similar to what Danny's saying. Your message will get to more people if it includes more people, and your organization will grow if it reaches more people. That's like the simple business case for it, really. The more people that feel connected to your messaging and feel connected even within your own organization, the more you'll get out of them, the more you'll empower them. Like, it's empowering language, really. And if everyone feels empowered, you get better work from them, you get more engagement from them. It's that people first and more people sort of situation. I think it's about empowering everyone.
Lovely. Deepti, anything to add on that?
Sure. So I've got two parts to my answer. Like, I'm going to answer it in two parts. The first one is like an organizational effort. Now, I see it as a collective effort because you can't create inclusive culture in isolation. But I get that sometimes not everyone may be on board with your ideas. So they may not have the time or the headspace or the resources right now. And that's okay. What you could do is you could start by creating small goals. Just lead by example in your own writing. I think even small, quiet changes can make a really big difference in this scenario. And I also think that inclusive language makes really good business sense. Like, when people feel seen and respected, they're more likely to engage with your brand. You're going to help your brand reach a very wide audience. So I think it's a smart investment. And if anything, like Eve said, it's going to open doors to more connections.
Yeah, I just think that, like, if we're being told we need to do something for an objective reason, but it feels quite distant, and sometimes it's hard for us to embrace it. But often when we have our own personal experiences that we relate to, it becomes easier to make those changes. So, for example, you could consider bringing in people to your organization to visit from those kind of areas of the community that you feel you're not reaching, and get to talk about their experiences and what they value and what the challenges that they've had, and how that might relate to what you're offering. Because when you meet somebody and you have a personal interaction, you start to understand the value more of what you can do for them.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got time for maybe a couple more questions. We've got too many questions to be able to answer today. It's a great problem to have. So hopefully we can maybe send some follow-up stuff if we haven't answered your question. Very grateful to all of you for being here and for submitting your questions. But we're done. Okay, so Hanley has put in a question here. I'll ask the question and then we'll see where we get to. What do you do when you have a broad audience? So that is inclusive of the average person, whatever average is, as well as academics or specialists in the given field. So here we're wanting to be inclusive of people regardless of their amount of knowledge. So what would be some tips that people can do if they're dealing with perhaps technical terminology or knowledge of processes or a particular industry? Deepti, what would you say there?
I would say that I believe that inclusion and clarity can work together, even in technical specialized writing. Like, you could possibly explain the jargon clearly the first time and then use simple language where possible. This way, you bring in your readers rather than alienating them. Now, I would highly recommend downloading our plain language standard, which is like a set of 10 statements, which shows how you can make your document clear and accessible and more reader friendly, even for a technical audience. So I would say that is a very handy resource to have.
I think definitely plain language is the way to go. I know it's like what we do, but clarity is accessibility and is inclusion. And to me, it's as simple as that.
You're good. And Daniel, on that one?
Yeah, it's a couple of things. So it's important to think about who you're most trying to impact with the document you're writing. Who most needs to act on it? Is it the academics or is it the general public? Sometimes it's going to be the most sensible thing to do to have a master version with all of the detail of the study and the methodology that's available, but then targeting more focused pieces to those audiences that maybe don't need to read all of that. So that's one thing. And I've seen the Education Review Authority doing that quite well, the Educational Review Office, with some of their research, and then 170-page in-depth research, but then a 2-pager for parents, 2-pager for teacher aides, for example, so that they can get what they need quickly and easily, and the people who need to go deeper. But there are studies that have shown that even for subject matter experts, plain language principles are what they're looking for. They want documents that are easy to scan so they can easily pick up those key points and that are concise. So a lot of those things are going to fade whoever you're writing to.
To audience and purpose, I think sometimes well-crafted inclusive version will do the job beautifully, but at other times you possibly need to adapt it slightly for different groups. So I think, just picking from what Daniel said, your approach really depends on your audience and purpose. Yeah.
Okay, our final question is a yes/no question. You each get a yes or a no on this one. That'll be our final question. And then I'm going to finish up with each of you is going to get the final word. Okay, you can give viewers out there just to repeat a top tip, give a bit of encouragement, or you could give a last zinger that maybe you haven't mentioned through the session and you want to just add that as a cherry on top. So the yes/no question is from Diane. In terms of sending out a large amount of information, like a wall of information, I think you mentioned that earlier, Daniel, do you think bullet points are helpful? Okay, yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Daniel?
Yes, but not everywhere. Not everywhere. If everything's bullet pointed, it's not going to help. Bullet point the stuff that's most important.
Poison's in the dose, right? You don't want a wall of bullet points. Can be helpful. Okay. Well, we could talk all day, folks. And if you have liked what you've heard, remember that you can go to rightonline.co.nz and try out the zinger of a bundle, $49 for a whole year of access to a collection of videos that is going to help you write more inclusively. It's going to increase your accessibility, and you'll probably pick up a whole bunch of extra skills along the way to make you a better communicator. And everyone benefits when you're a better communicator. So thank you, folks, if you've come along, join us today. If this is your first Q&A, we hope to see you again. And now we go to our final words, and we're going to go in reverse order. So, Daniel, you get a last word.
Yeah, look, don't worry if you feel like you're only halfway there with some of this stuff. Like, I personally feel like I'm still on a journey in some ways, but I can see how interacting with people, be it culturally or from different groups, have been the things given me the motivation to make those changes. So you don't have to get everything right straight away. Just being open to understanding what people need and how you can relate to them is a big help. But really, we've got some great resources on Write Online. There's a series, Borderless Communication, that covers writing to a wide range of audiences, and as well as the materials that Deepti mentioned, you can download for free.
Nice. Okay, Eve, your last word to the viewers.
Again, I think it would be just make sure you're connecting with the reader. You're making them feel safe, you're making them feel seen, and you're also making them feel supported. I think if you're doing that throughout your writing, you're going to get the best out of them and out of your interactions with people. And then everyone's going to come out of it feeling good.
Okay, Deepti, the final word. The final word is yours.
Right. So I think inclusive language is a vast topic, and there's so much to learn and unlearn as well. So it can get a bit exhausting, but that's okay. Take it at your own pace. We are all still learning and unlearning things. So one final tip I'd like to leave you with is try to see if you can get your work reviewed by someone else so that you can get feedback, and just be open to the changes and be fluid and see how it goes.
Beautiful. Okay. What else is the spice of life? The learning new stuff. We're always learning. Good luck, folks out there. Hopefully you've learned something today, and you're going to be able to go out there and reap the rewards of writing more inclusively, extending your reach to more people, bringing more people closer to you so that you can get the things done that you need to. Good luck out there, and we'll see you again at the next Q&A. Thank you, Deepti. Thank you, Eve. Thank you, Daniel. See you again soon.